Hey, I'm Diogo. I met Martin Cooper through my CrossFit training. I had a little problem with my shoulder that I couldn't raise like this and do this movement. That would be impossible. So if you imagine, when I was getting in the parking lot, I couldn't get a ticket. It wasn't possible to do this one. And at the first section with Martin Cooper, that completely almost got painless. Like, I felt really better, and right in the same day I could do this movement again, and it's perfect.
Okay guys, it's Martin back with my man Diogo here. It's been a while since I've actually done a video for QueroQuiro, so I had a little bit of a sabbatical, and I was training and studying and improving my Portuguese and my conjugations and my vocabulary, and then they turned around and asked me, Martin, why don't we do a video in English? So much for that, okay? So today we have Diogo here. He's a patient of mine that is fortunate to be bilingual, so he can understand what I'm saying. Essentially, he's a crossfitter.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And so we met and we started doing some work on his shoulder. Diogo, as far as your perception of Chiro, what did you think of Chiro? Like, what did you think that Chiro was all about at the time?
First of all, I thought it was only cracking and just pushing like a really strength. And after my first consult, like the first time that we met, I realized that you are reconnecting like all my body with the brains and the stimulation and the
Exactly, okay. The brain remembers movement, remembers posture, remembers everything relating to how you comport yourself in a programming, okay? It's a pattern of movement, a pattern of stimulation. Chiro really enters the game when it comes to looking at the control and how your brain controls that movement, affects tone, affects coordination, and also affects posture, obviously. In Diogo's case, what we did was we did an evaluation of the shoulder that he had, what was going on. We wanted to try and find out if he had a problem with some of the nerves, or specifically with tendons, bursas, or other structures involved. We did an analysis, we did an evaluation. We've gone through how many sessions now?
It's probably like this
sixth or seventh session.
Yeah.
So he's responded really quickly, actually. What we're going to do today is just going to show you a couple of little things that we did in the first consult, what we do today with him, and then also some homework that I've given him anyway to do in his warm-ups, warm-downs, regarding just trying to get a little bit more shoulder health, something nice and diffuse, not so specific and not super technical, but something that anyone can use in any environment, really. So one of the first things that we actually look at when it comes to shoulder position and scapular health is the position of that inferior border of the scapula, okay? So technically, I shouldn't be able to put my fingers underneath that scapula, all right? Now, one of the major muscles involved in this, apart from where the pain actually is a muscle called Serratus Anterior. Now, it's an commonly overlooked muscle that basically holds the scapular border in contact with the rib cage as the shoulder moves, okay? So with shoulders, it's a little bit more complicated, because at the end of the day, the site of the pain isn't always the site of the problem, okay? So what we want to try and work on is figure out what's triggering this. Is it something that's coming from the neck? Is it something that's coming from the scapula? Or is it something a little bit more mechanical a little bit more of a concentration of overload in some of the structures here, triggering a bit of inflammation or a little bit of irritation or a little bit of dysfunction. So in this case, what we found was that it was a combination of both. Okay, some of this was based around how he controls the scapula. Some of this was based around some of these overloaded structures through here. Basically the rotator cuff muscles and the ability to be able to coordinate that scapula, and I'll show you in a moment, was causing a little bit of irritation in this subacromial space, basically just in this little spot here, okay? The shoulder should be moving in conjunction with the scapula, okay? And that scapular movement creates space, all right? And unfortunately, this scapula wasn't moving and he was jamming that shoulder, and that hence this particular arc of movement was causing a little bit of discomfort. He couldn't actually create the space to be able to give these muscles and these tendons the ability to be able to move without causing some kind of pinching or pinzamento. So logically what we want to do is we want to analyze and then we want to test things. So I'm just going to show you a real simple test that I did with yoga, okay? And it's essentially just an assessment of that mechanical relationship here, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get you to hold that there, all right? We're going to bring both of those hands up here, good, all right? And what I want you to do is keep the arms nice and straight. So straighten the arms out, good. And from here, we want to lift those hands all the way up to the ceiling. And you can see that that right shoulder is moving nicely, okay? Bring that back down. And there's a nice little lag on this left side, okay? So what we want to do again, let's do that again just to show everyone what's actually happening. So you can see that there is a lag time on this scapula, and that's what we want to try and work on in terms of active strategies and passive strategies, okay? So before we get into the proactive strategies, we want to try and work on some passive strategies, okay? We want to try and get more mobility in the thoracic rib cage to give that scapula a little bit more breathing space to be able to do its job, okay? What we also want to do is look at the nerve supply to that shoulder, okay? A majority of the nerves involved with the rotator cuff muscles originate from the base of the neck here. So this area is really important, okay? Not only for the shoulder, but also for the neck. And we always look to adjust and combine with exercise. That's what the evidence states is the most effective way of trying to treat these kinds of problems. So the purpose of trying to get a little bit more mobility in here is just to try and improve the scapular mechanics here. So an adjustment that or a technique that I use, it's called a wing lift. And essentially it's a manual adjustment that I think hits a lot of different structures with the same stimulus. So I think that it's a very effective and a very safe way of getting more mobility into a very rigid shoulder of a typical CrossFit posture, okay? So I'm gonna ask Yogo to put his hands on top of his head for me. Good. I'm gonna work on this T4, which is a common segment that tends to work a lot harder than what most people, how would I say, perceive at least, okay? So, elbows together, good man. All right, take a nice big breath in and out, just fall back to me. Beautiful, lovely, very good. Okay. Another really interesting test that I like to do as well, just to help eliminate and differentiate a structure involved with this, is to test the nerves out, okay? And one way that we can do that is by stretching a nerve specifically to try and elicit a response, okay? So with Diogo, he had a little bit of elbow pain as well after a few sessions. So we wanted to try and find out what the heck that was, okay? Now a simple test for the median nerve is what we call a neurodynamic stretch. So I'm just gonna give you an example, and we're gonna bring this hand up, and out. Tingling? No? Good. Tingling? Good. Now side bend your right ear to your right shoulder. That's it. Good man. Any tingling?
A bit.
A little bit. Cool. All right. Now when he first came in, that was a really positive test. Okay, he was tingling and going off and oh, this hurts. Okay, so we were giving him some nerve stretches as well as a few different exercises just to work on that general shoulder health. Okay, that he needs to be focusing on if he wants to keep doing this craziness with CrossFit. Okay, I'm just going to do an adjustment in the neck, and then we'll give him an exercise, and we'll call that a day. Does that sound okay? Yeah. Cool. All right. So an area that we want to be working on as well is always, as a chiropractor, you always look to try and see what's going on in the spine. So essentially, the nerves involved with these kinds of structures, all right, they always originate from the base of the neck, C4, C5, C6, C7, okay? And sometimes T1 too, all right? So what we'll do today is just give you an idea of what type of an adjustment and what the purpose of the adjustment actually is too, okay? Good. Good. Lovely. Okay?
Sure.
Good man. I'm going to do one more at C5 as well. Good. Awesome. Yeah, that's heaps better. Heaps better. Awesome. So in Diogo's case, we do have a little bit of what we would call nerve tension, okay, associated with a little bit of pain that chronically is just kind of, how would I say, gotten a little bit more complicated, okay? Now, like muscles, nerves can contract, they can shorten, they can get irritated, just like a muscle, like a tendon, like a joint, okay? So, an observation that we made at the very beginning was that these nerves were a little bit irritated, a little bit grumpy with us, okay? Essentially just because it's just been overloaded and angry and grumpy, and that little speech, okay, that little signal going to the brain that something's not quite right, ends up turning into a shout and then into a scream, and then he can't move his arm, and then he comes in and sees me, okay? So how's this? Let's move on to homework, okay?
Okay.
Apart from just a very simple nerve stretch that I hope you've been doing.
Yeah, before the class I do it.
Okay. What I suggested with Diogo is that we just look at a global focus, nothing too technical, nothing too specific, okay? What we want to try and focus on is just getting a little bit more shoulder stability. We'll just explain on this side, okay? But what I want you to want to try and work with Diogo is just getting this better movement in the scapula, okay? So that the shoulder doesn't get angry quite so much. Now, the muscle that we kind of found was most how would I say, desligado, okay, unconnected, all right, is this serratus anterior, okay? Now this muscle is a overlooked muscle. It's a very specific muscle that has a very specific purpose, okay? And it essentially holds this inferior border of the scapula in or connected to that rib cage, okay? So if you want to see that muscle, it's like kind of like the Arnold Schwarzenegger Humpty Dumpty muscle through here that you see with all the big fitness gurus and Instagrammadors, okay? All right. So what I've given him is a great, superb serratus anterior activation exercise, okay? It's called a torch press, all right? Generally, I like to give this with one hand, like a unilateral exercise, but because we want to be efficient, because we want to use this as a pre-carga, okay, something that he uses before he does a session, okay, I'm giving it to him with a medicine ball. It gives him a chance to squeeze and actually integrate a couple of other muscles as well as that serratus, okay? So the idea is that he pushes forward and upward, okay? So maybe just a little bit further out. Good. And then back out. Good. So what we want to try and look at, keep going, is maintaining that inferior border of the scapula in contact, okay? And it trains protraction, external rotation, and retraction under load. It's a very simple exercise, but it's also a very effective exercise. And that's essentially what we want solutions to be for our patients. Convenient, but sustainable as well, okay? Because that's what gives results, yeah? So guys, this is a little bit of a little snippet of what we've been doing with Diogo. We've had a really good evolution in his discomfort and also in the mechanics of his shoulder. Essentially, I think he's actually responded faster than I expected, okay? So, I mean, we've done a good job with this guy. He's also a motivated and receptive patient. So these are the kinds of people that I like to work with because this is how we can optimize results and also maintain results with people too.
Thank you.
You're welcome, mate. No worries, it's my pleasure. It's my job, man. All right?
Thank you, man.
Awesome. So, guys, let's wrap it up here. Muito obrigado por passar por aqui no mundo do YouTube. Não esqueça para se inscrever, dar like para nós. Comentários embaixo é sempre bem-vindo, ok? Me ajude com essas terminologias desse idioma, gente, porque às vezes eu me atrapalho nesta parte do conteúdo, ok? Obrigado por passar por aqui, Diogo.
Obrigado.
And yeah, gente, até a próxima. Yo!